I am Joey, co-founder of Nurture Pods. In March 2020, all daycares and schools in California were ordered to shut down because of COVID. Overnight, parents found themselves trying to homeschool their kids while teachers found themselves managing parents, which they were never trained to do. Managing 20-some frantic parents trying to homeschool their kids in the middle of a pandemic is a job that can drive any sane person to jump out of a window. I was one of those parents. So was Emily, Carrie, Tavia, and John. The four of us were friends with kids who played before COVID. So when COVID hit, we decided to bond together and take turns homeschooling the kids. Mondays, I would teach the kids at my house. Tuesdays, Emily would teach the kids at her house. Wednesdays, Carrie would teach the kids at her house. Thursdays was Tavia, and Fridays was John. So basically every parent taught one day and got the remaining 4 days off. We also took turns creating a weekly schedule for the kids. Every Sunday, one of us would create a detailed hourly schedule of the upcoming week of activities that included the curriculum provided by the teacher. The schedule would start at 9 and would finish at 5. Having a schedule to follow on the days I was hosting was huge. It essentially made homeschooling dummy-proof. All I had to do was look on the schedule and follow the instructions. Literally any adult with reading skills, some basic math, and computing and internet skills could have homeschooled our kids using the schedule. Prior to having a schedule, I was literally scratching my head wondering what to do for 2/3 of the day when I had to watch the kids. It takes a lot of time and energy to find creative and fun things to fill up the day with. And the best days, I still felt guilty that I was falling short, no matter how much time and energy I put into creating something. With our system of taking turns homeschooling the kids with a detailed hour-by-hour schedule, the rest of the spring was a breeze. We were able to get our work done and feel so good that our kids were actually learning and socializing. So we loved it so much that we actually turned it into a summer camp. I love spending time with my 6-year-old, but truth be told, I was really looking forward to school starting again in the fall. But on July 17, the governor of California, where we're all in San Francisco, announced that all schools would remain closed in the fall. So overnight, a Facebook group called Pandemic Pods popped up. It grew from 0 to 35,000 parents within a few days. The chatter could be summarized in 7 words. Holy shit, what am I gonna do? Parents could not imagine repeating the spring all over again. Working parents feared losing their jobs if they had to take time off to homeschool the kids. But they feared their kids not learning and being left behind if they didn't. So what to do? The light bulb went off. What if we used our experience of forming and managing homeschooling groups in the spring to help other parents do what we did? It would be better for teachers too. A teacher with a class of 20 has to manage 20 parents on a daily basis. Obviously, this is during COVID. But if that class is split into 4 groups of 5 kids per group, then the teacher only has to manage 4 parents on a daily basis. That's obviously pretty radically different, right? Going from 20 people you have to manage on a daily basis to 4. So this frees up a teacher's time to focus on some kids that might need extra care. Also, if the parents have a detailed hourly schedule to follow, then it really reduces the amount of time teachers have to spend explaining to parents what they should be doing. In the spring, if I had to guess from what I could see through emails and a lot of the chatter, a teacher's time probably was 60% just communicating with parents, answering questions and going through that sort of thing. So knowing that we could help all these parents and teachers, we decided to launch Nurture Pods. NurturePods.org is a website that matches kids into homeschooling groups of 2 to 5 kids per group based on things like their family's COVID regimen, teacher, school, grade, and home address. Parents sign up on nurturepods.org for free and fill out a short form. Based on the answers submitted in the form, the website's algorithm pairs them with other parents. Parents then meet each other over Zoom. After a few Zoom calls, parents decide which homeschooling group they want to join. Matchmaking is a free service for now, but we accept donations. The homeschooling groups that are created contain between 2 to 5 kids on average. You can go up to 10, but usually it's about no more than 5, and I really do not recommend more than 6. For COVID reasons and others, it's just really hard to manage more kids than that. Parents take turn homeschooling the kids in their group at their house like we did. You can also have the caretaker teacher host at their house, but it's probably better to do it at the parents. It's less, back and forth for the kids. Nurture Pods bring neighbors that share the same COVID practices together with the common goal of homeschooling their kids by forming a co-op. It's free to form and run a homeschooling co-op, but parents in a pod can elect to hire a caretaker or teacher. At minimum, a caretaker and an adult who reads English, has basic math, computer, and internet skills. The caretaker supervises the pod of kids at the parent's home and implements the teacher's curriculum by following the schedule, Nurture, or the school provides. So Nurture, just to be clear, does not create its own curriculum, but will take a school's curriculum and drop it into a schedule if the school hasn't already done that, and you can add some additional things that schools typically don't provide for virtual learning, right? Things like, what to do for physical education or some other kind of art things. Homeschooling this way costs parents the same as an average daycare, but with the advantage that kids are being schooled and, whereas in daycare, obviously there's no schooling involved, and in a teacher to student ratio of 1:4. The difference between teachers and caretakers is that teachers have teaching credentials and experience teaching. So teachers naturally cost more than caretakers. Parents that add a caretaker or a teacher to a pod typically split the cost of the teacher, but they can choose to adjust their contribution based on income. Lower income families in a pod would pay less than higher income families in a pod if split this way as opposed to evenly. Nurture also offers volunteer caretakers and teachers for parents who cannot afford to pay, assuming we have enough of them. School teachers can use nurturepods.org to divide their classes into smaller groups for easier to manage virtual learning. While teachers can randomly organize groups on their own, which I personally feel is still better than not doing anything about it and kind of looking the other way, Nurture's algorithm matches students in the same classroom based on shared COVID regimen and location, among other things. And that can be, the COVID conversation can be an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of parents and teachers, especially if you don't know the other parents. It's like, what are you doing for COVID? What is your practices? What do you do on a daily basis? These can be kind of, seemed as invasive and uncomfortable questions, and some people don't even know what the right questions to ask. But since the whole reason why we're getting into virtual schools this fall, possibly this year, is because of COVID, these are very, very important questions to be asking. NurturePods.org launched in San Francisco 3 weeks ago and has over 300 parent subscribers. Our goal as a member of Mass Challenge, Rhode Island Hub, Venture Mentoring Service, and Venture Cafe is to bring the lessons learned in San Francisco to Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Our goal for speaking today is to spark ideas and to begin a conversation. We would love to whiteboard local ideas with educators and parents alike. We also want to hire local caretakers and teachers. Homeschooling pod takers in San Francisco make about $6,000 a month. Teachers would make more than that. I'm hoping to roll out the first version of our online marketplace website next weekend. So that would be something that's a little bit more like peer-to-peer. You can actually see people and connect with them online. And we're pretty close to having that done, at least the first version, by next weekend. It won't look super fancy or sexy, but it'll have some, the functionality. While I built all the technical things, I would love to bring on a technical co-founder who is way better than I am, because I can get the job done, but I'm not amazing. We're soft launching in Rhode Island right here, right now, today. So sign up at nurturepods.org. As a Venture Cafe members, I want to hear from you. So please, please, please talk to me about anything and everything. Assuming, I'm hoping it's homeschool related, but it can also not be. But no idea or comment is literally too small. So my email address is right there. I'll drop it in the chat as well. It's joey@nurturepod.org. And I seriously want to hear all of your thoughts and comments. Literally anything. Just even if you think it's like the smallest thing, it's not small enough for me. So definitely want to hear it. So thank you. And happy, open it up for questions. I don't know if I can.
Joey, good job. So full disclosure, everyone, they pivoted their original business that they applied to Mass Challenge and got in Mass Challenge with 3 weeks ago. And I'm full disclosure in one of his VMS mentors. So great job. And I just sent a picture of your CTA slide to the team.
Oh, cool.
And Rebecca, Victoria had a question. Did you say the grade range of students? So can you explain your target audience?
Sorry, what was the question? Let me open up the chat, I guess. What was the
Yep.
question?
Did you say the grade age of your students? So pre-K to
Oh,
second grade.
yeah, great question. So I focus here on homeschooling just to not make the easier the story to follow along, but it actually, I would say we would start at about potty training. So like 2 to 3 on average and higher. Potty training just complicates things, but so it would include before school age kids. There's a big need for, I would almost even think arguably bigger need for people that are preschool age, that have, working parents that have to work. And because once you start getting in the higher, for a matchmaking service, which is the first step that we do, is we put people together. And, when people start getting into second, third, fourth, fifth, they already, a lot of parents already have made, or at least the kids have some friends, and the parents they might not have friends necessarily at the school, but they already know a couple parents. So it's easier to get that process going. Whereas if you're pre-K, you may not, know some parents with kids the same age as your kids. So I'd say the sweet spot is probably between 2 to 3 years old on the low end, up to about 9 or 10 on the high end. It's not that we would not include kids that are older, but we found that, middle and definitely high school, they can do the virtual learning way more, way easier with less guidance, less supervisory type guidance. So while there might be a need, it's way less than elementary school.
Joey, I have a question that came out last night after we had our pre-talk conversation.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are right now on Facebook, like, how can we do this? Can we share childcare times? Have you guys thought about launching some kind of marketing piece that, I could just, when that happens, I can be like, guys, sign up here. Because a lot of my friends' kids aren't the same age as my kids, so it doesn't necessarily make sense for them to be together for their learning environment, but definitely can share.
That was my experience was the same. With a lot of people that I know is the same, is that, a lot of their friends either don't have kids, or the ones that they do, the ages don't line up. So then then they kind of have to go beyond their network. I'd say nurturepods.org is probably the best place to go, because it has all the information you need. And then if they actually want to sign up, they're already, at the website, they can sign up.
And then Victoria asked, would an educator teacher need to have their California teaching license, or does the fact that it's a public school change what's required?
Yeah, so no, it's a lot of it obviously depends on what you're saying when we're, sort of just pitching you, if you are describing you to parent pods, right? So we essentially put your bio. So where you are in terms of credentials and teaching experience would essentially be relayed to the parents in that pod, and would also correspond to an actual rate, right? Commensurate with that. So literally on the low end, which would be the least expensive from the parent's point of view, but the least amount of compensation from someone coming on board to work point of view, is someone that just has some basic computing, math, kind of high school level, let's say, skills, that can supervise kids. It's an adult that can supervise kids. That's basically the minimum requirement. And that on the PACE scale, that would be the entry point all the way through, on the very high end, a credentialed teacher with lots of working experience. And there's obviously everything in between. So it's just really a matter of taking your resume, relaying that to the pods, and coming up with just an appropriate sort of pricing for that. Our focus, there are some homeschoolings, they go by a few different names now: micro schools, pandemic pods, homeschooling pods, learning pods, companies that have their own curriculum, that are creating content. That's not our, we're not doing that for a variety of reasons. So what we're doing is trying to work with the public school systems or private schools, and taking their curriculum and making it easy for the parent or caretaker to follow. So even our teachers who have teaching experience aren't required, unless they want to, and we're not against it, but that's not what really our focus is they would just take the curriculum provided by the teacher and implement it.